Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining. We're going to give it a few minutes to let everyone come in and then we'll get started. Wonderful. I can see a few more people joining. I'm going to give it one more minute and then we'll start with the webinar. Amazing. It is 12:01, so we're going to just jump straight in. So yeah, a big thank you to everyone who's joining us for this webinar. On the call with me today, I've got my colleague Sahil, who is the Key Partnerships Manager here at The Big Give, Alex, our MD, and then also, I noticed Karen's name's missing here, but Karen, who's our Customer and Ops Executive as well, and of course me, the Marketing Comms Manager. And before we get started, just going to go through a little bit of housekeeping. So in the bottom of your Zoom panel, you see a chat box function. If you click on that, set it to everyone, you'll be able to introduce yourselves, share your ideas, or say if there's any tech issues at all, you can put that all there. There's also a Q&A box at the bottom of your Zoom panel. If you have any questions throughout the webinar, please pop them in there and we'll make sure we get to them and answer as many questions as we can. And please try and put them in there rather than the chat so we don't miss any of those questions. If for any reason you need captions for this webinar, there is a show captions button at the bottom of your Zoom panel. Please do press that and you'll have a live transcript of the webinar whilst it's going on. And of course, this webinar is being recorded, so if you want to share with any of your colleagues after the session, it will be available on our YouTube channel afterwards. And of course, there are a few of you in this webinar today, so if we do miss any of your questions, please do get in touch with us directly at hello@biggive.org, and we'll be happy to answer those for you. So in today's session, we're just going to have a brief introduction to the Christmas Challenge, and then we're going to get straight into tips for completing your application with a champion perspective on that as well. And then we'll jump straight into Q&A to answer any questions that you have on those applications. So in terms of the Christmas Challenge, of course, this year the campaign launches on Giving Tuesday, the 28th of November till the 5th of December. And last year's results were better than ever. We had over 1,000 amazing charities taking part, and we often get the assumption that, you know, the Christmas Challenge is just for those big charities, but that's not the case at all. The median income of charities was 500k last year, and we see a high percentage of small to medium charities taking part in this campaign. So it's a really great opportunity for all charities involved. We raised an amazing £28.6 million in total, which is the biggest amount we've ever raised in the Christmas Challenge. And of course, we're aiming for even higher this year. And the highest amount, as you can see, 90% up on Christmas Challenge 21. So really exciting results from that. And there were over 81,000 donations across the whole campaign. So again, just a really exciting opportunity. And we're always looking to just do even better year on year. And in terms of how it works, we did have an introduction video a few weeks ago to detail the process. So if you have questions about how the campaign works and what you have to do at each stage, I would definitely encourage you to check out that previous YouTube video that we did to get more details on this. But just a brief overview of the process. We are currently in this stage 1 initial application phase. So you'll all be looking to complete that application form to say what you're raising funds for, and the deadline for that is the 7th of July. And then once you complete that application form, you can move straight onto the pledge collection stage. You don't have to wait till the 7th to get to that stage. You just move straight on. And this is where you start to go out to your network and collect pledge forms, which are essentially promises of funding that contribute to your match funding pot. And then from there, we go on to doing all of our vetting and then onto the campaign. But again, I'm not going to dwell on this page. Definitely go and check out that introduction webinar for more details on this process. But yeah, I think, oh, one more slide, sorry. So of course, we work with a range of amazing organisations which help to make this campaign a success. Some of our champions include the Reed Foundation, the Childhood Trust, and many other amazing names. So you can actually go onto our Crystal Challenge page on the website to check out some of the champions involved in the campaign this year, and we'll be adding to that as the year progresses. Of course, we have a number of amazing charities that take part in the campaign each year. And as I mentioned, it can be a range of small and big charities, but some familiar names you might see here, like the Prince's Trust and Friends of the Earth, take part in our campaigns year on year. And finally, Big Give do all of our own PR and marketing around the campaign to ensure that we're raising awareness about just the importance of all of the causes that you're working on and trying to get as much people involved as possible. So we work with a range of different media to just promote that campaign, and you'll see some familiar names here, and we're very excited to continue to ensure that we're raising awareness for the campaign this year. So I think actually that was my last section, and we'll move straight on to tips, and I'll hand over to Sahil.
Thanks, Beth. Yeah, so I'll just run through some really hopefully helpful tips for you when you're completing your application and things to consider. So firstly, we often get the question about what can I apply for? So you can apply for basically what you need to raise funds for. So that can be specific projects, and we know that lots of charities do like to apply for particular projects that they're working on. So you can apply for funding for funding for full amount for a project, or it could be funds going to a larger project, or it could be a project that's already in sort of in process, or one that you've applied for in previous years. You can also apply for core and capital costs. We would advise that if you are considering this, that you just carefully consider the wording of your application. So just to really make sure you understand the impact of, really make sure you highlight the impact of your organization in your application, because as we'll discuss in a bit more detail, just asking for what you need probably doesn't really sell your application. So really focusing on the impact of your work as an organization is what you should focus on if you're applying for core or capital costs. So when you're completing the application, these are some key points that you should consider. First of all, make sure you provide as much detail within each character, within each section, within the character count. So we know there is a limited character count for each section, and the reason for this is, as we'll show you on what the campaign pages look like, the copy you put into your application is also what is shown on your campaign page to donors. So we want to make it as snappy as attractive for donors who probably won't like reading whole reams and pages of detail about your project. So consider that when you're completing your application. As we've mentioned already, the impact. This is what we want to see, what our champions want to see, and also what donors want to see. So make sure you answer the impact question as detailed as possible. Clearly convey that impact of what your charity does, what the work is, what the project's impact is. Donation. There is a question in the application form about your strategy for securing donations during the Christmas Challenge campaign week. And we want to see a good detailed plan of how you expect to raise donations during that week. So what type of donors will you be targeting? Will it be a mixture of new and existing donors? How will you be reaching them? Will it be through direct mail, social media, or through business networks? And really just have a considered approach to what you're going to be planning for that campaign week. We know it's a bit early, so your full ideas and your full marketing plans won't be ready yet, but we do want for you to show some thought about what you're going to be planning and who you're going to be reaching out to, so that we can understand how realistic it is for you to achieve your donation target during the campaign week. Finally, the budget question is really important. We ask you how you are intending to spend any funds raised during the Christmas challenge. And again, being as detailed as possible here, so we can see, like, maybe ideally an itemized list of where the funds are going. Again, this is a great due diligence for donors as well. So it's just a good practice for to showcase how responsible you are as a charity, which we know you all are, but just to show that there is a clear plan of how the funds are going to be spent. Setting a realistic target. So there's some charities that have taken part in maybe one or two or multiple Christmas challenges, and then there's obviously charities applying for the first time. So it's really important to set a realistic target for your organization and your experience in our campaigns. So if this is your first campaign, we'd probably recommend being conservative on your campaign target. So you can know so you can understand the mechanics of the campaign in relation to pledges, champion funds, and online donations, and just making sure you use up your match funds in your first campaign. We just want to ensure that charities use up all the match funds they have available for their campaign. So if this is your first campaign, you set a real conservative target, you hit it, and then next year, if you apply again, you can probably then start to look to increase your target. If you've had previous campaign experience, this can give champions a bit more confidence in committing more champion funds for your campaign. So you can, maybe if you're feeling confident, you can go for a higher target than last year. Obviously, we would just encourage you to consider your donor appetite for giving this year and doing all of that mapping in your application process, so you can set that realistic target if you want to maybe stay at the same target or go for a higher target. Fundraising experience, we do ask this in the application form. So highlight fundraising experience you're proud of in the past. Have you run digital fundraising campaigns before? So again, highlight this in your application, because then it gives us a good indication about your sort of digital fundraising experience. I've mentioned before in other webinars that charities new to digital fundraising have taken part in this in the Christmas challenge before, so don't let that put you off. So if you haven't taken part in digital fundraising before, highlight other fundraising experience, and just so we can understand your commitment to the campaign and how you can raise the funds. Annual income. So what is your target compared to your annual income? We don't want charities to over leverage themselves and set a really high target in relation to their charity size. So if this does seem the case, this champions may be put off by awarding you funding. So set a realistic target in relation to your income as well. So what do champions look for? This is champions perspective. So as we repeated, complete the application as fully and accurately as possible, providing as much detailed in the limited character count. As I mentioned, we will show you how this will look on your campaign page as well, which is why we ask you to keep why we have a character count. Paying particular attention to the impact questions. That's something champions really focus on when they're reviewing the applications. And really important, which is sometimes actually overlooked, is making sure your details on the Charity Commission website or the OSCR are up to date. So things that we complete due diligence on all applications, on all charities that have applied. So really make sure that your accounts are filed on time, that you have a website registered, because sometimes actually if there isn't a website for a charity, that may put off champions for funding them because of that lack of digital presence. Making sure your trustees are up to date. And this is just general good practice. So never mind if you're applying for the Christmas challenge or not, it's just really crucial to make sure all of your details on the Charity Commission are up to date, especially if you're applying for other grants and other funds. And again, like, you never know who's doing due diligence on your charity. If you're applying for unrestricted or capital costs, call your campaign Charity X for unrestricted appeal. It doesn't really sell your work. It doesn't really sell what you're doing. As I mentioned before, mention your impact. So title your campaign around your impact of your work, and that focus your application on the impact of your work there. So really don't try and be too blasé about that. title. Things to remember: wording, as I mentioned, some of the content in your application will also be used for your campaign page. So you want to consider how that's also going to be reflected to donors. So just think about that when you're completing your application form. Media items, we do ask you to upload media assets when you're completing the application form. If you don't have anything ready yet, don't worry, you can put placeholder images up for now and you can update it later on. We only share the PDF of your applications with champions, so that won't be a factor against you if you don't have media assets or videos ready right now. The sooner you submit your stage 1 application, the more time you have to secure your pledges. So we really encourage you, charities, not to leave it to the last week or even the last day to submit that application. Do it as soon as possible. Also, we get a lot of emails on the deadline day. So sometimes it takes us a bit longer to reply to emails on that last day. So if you do have any specific questions, it's better to get them to us early as possible rather than waiting to the last day. Grammar, spelling, remember to proof your application before it is submitted. This is, I'm sure you're all aware of this, but yeah, that's a very important but sometimes overlooked thing. And additional support, we have guides and resources available in the application process, so please do make sure you use as much of that as possible, especially if it's your first time. We also have case studies available from previous participants, so I think Karen may be putting that link in the chat now. So again, have a read of those case studies just to maybe give you some ideas for your own application. So these are some of the questions, common questions that we get asked, and Beth will answer some of them. So, do charities get chosen by the same champions as in previous years?
Yes, essentially. It really depends on the champion, of course, but in many cases, a lot of champions may give funding to a certain charity year on year. So yes.
And is there a disadvantage if you apply for the same project from previous years or campaigns?
So definitely not. It, as we mentioned, is definitely fine for you to have an application continuing on from something that you've done in the past. But as long as you kind of take these tips on board about how to make your application better and demonstrating your impact, it's absolutely fine. And there is actually a question in the application form which states that if your application is part of a bigger project, you can add more details there. So it's a great opportunity for you to say why you're potentially continuing work with that application and with that project if you need to.
And we do run other types of campaigns with different sort of match funding models. So what's the benefit of applying for the Christmas Challenge over, say, other campaigns where we run the one-to-one model?
So firstly, it's bigger opportunity to have bigger targets. With our one-to-one model campaigns, there's normally a set amount of match funding which you can apply for. For Christmas Challenge, this is bigger, so there's a bigger opportunity for you to raise bigger amounts if you wanted to. I would also say there's bigger opportunities for you to raise your profile, particularly if you're looking to attract new donors. We always get a very high percentage of charities reporting that they've received donations from new supporters. I'm not sure on the exact stat, but I know a good 20% or 25% of donors from the Christmas Challenge last year were people that donated to more than one charity as well. So again, a really great opportunity to kind of increase your supporters and get new supporters there. And of course, with all of our match funding campaigns, there's other benefits such as access to that free training and resources that we do ahead of the Christmas Challenge, the opportunity to increase your skills and resilience in digital fundraising. So I definitely just consider what your goals are as an organisation and think about how you could benefit from the Christmas Challenge and what your aims are to get out of that campaign.
Great, thanks, Beth. I want to show everyone what your campaign page will look like. So hopefully this will work. So Beth, can you let me know if you can see the Christmas Challenge page?
Yeah, I can see it.
Great, brilliant. So this is the Christmas Challenge landing page. So obviously there'll be a Christmas Challenge 2023 landing page for this year. And this is where we list all of the charities taking part in the Christmas Challenge. And each charity will have their own campaign page on our website, and where donors will need to go to donate directly to your charity. So let's say we want to find a charity working sorry, I just want to mention as well, we do have search functionality for donors to find charities that they want to donate to. So as Beth mentioned, there are donors coming to the site that aren't necessarily affiliated or already supporters of particular charities, but they want to find a charity that they want to support that resonates with them and have their donation doubled. So we have different search functionalities for donors. So there is the filter option where they can search according to like categories or locations where projects are running or campaigns are running, or types of people that the campaign is helping, or the category of the charity work or the campaign itself. So donors may use that to find a charity, and in your application form, you will see those options to categorize your application. So that's why we asked that. So think about how you want donors to find you. And then we also have the option to search by just typing in some key phrases. So helping kids, for example, and it brings up a list of charities where kids is mentioned either somewhere on their campaign page, whether it's in the title, the campaign name, or in the rest of the campaign copy. One campaign I really want to highlight, because it's a really good example of what a good campaign page looks like, is the Benwick Trust. So so this is their campaign page. We have, like I mentioned, we have this character limit just to make sure there isn't too much writing on the campaign page, and it's easy for donors to understand the work or what the funds are going to without having to read too much. It's a really nice campaign page because it has a lot of media assets, but also there is a lot of detail in each section. So there is obviously the campaign title, then there's the summary, just to give a brief overview of what this campaign is for. You can put a video on the campaign page if you want, and then there's an explanation of what the situation is or what the problem is. That's the question in your application form, and what the solution is. So how is Benwick, in this case, providing a solution to that problem? And then there's a list, there's some media assets and quotes as well. So just making it more attractive for donors and selling the work of the charity, and donors can slide along and click on aims and finding out where the money is going to, and the impact and reporting of the charity. And just to note, when the campaign page opens, there'll be a big donate button here, and that's where donors can click on to make a donation. And then, of course, you can directly link your campaign page in your own marketing material straight to donors, straight to this page, for example, just so they can, it's easy for them to donate rather than having going to the landing page and searching for your charity. So that is an overview of how the campaign page works. I'll just share my screen again because we do have one more slide. Sorry. Yeah. So the last bit, so as mentioned, applications are open. Please submit your application as soon as possible. Application closes on 7th of July. So visit your biggive.org, create your BigGive account or log in if you already have one. Click on BigGive campaigns and apply now next Christmas Challenge 2023. If you're unsure if you already have an account with us, please just do pop us an email. We can have a check with you and get you access if you already have an account with us. We are also hosting another webinar on Wednesday, 28th of June. It's about securing your pledges. So we'll have a couple of charities giving a case study on how they secure their pledges for their campaigns last year. So giving you some hints and tips on how you can go about securing your pledges. I think Karen may be putting the sign up link for that webinar in the chat as well. So please do sign up for that webinar. I will stop sharing now. And yeah, I think we can open it up to questions. Questions now.
Great. I'm seeing a lot of great questions in the chat, so I'll just start with the beginning. Will you send the presentation after as a resource?
Yep, we will share the presentation, the slide deck as a resource, and it's being recorded, so it will be also on our YouTube channel.
Are you saying anyone that applies gets a space?
No, unfortunately we can't guarantee every charity will get champion funding. I think last year was 75 to 80% of charities that secured the minimum pledge threshold of £1,000 secured some form of champion funding. So champion funding is awarded at the discretion of champions, so we can't guarantee every charity receives funding. But in the event that you are not awarded champion funding, but you have secure pledges, we still invite you to take part in the campaign using your pledges as match funds. And that's an option for you to accept if you want to.
And just a quick update on that, I checked the blog just before this, and it was actually 84% of charities who were eligible to receive funding did get funding. So yeah.
Thanks both. The next question is, will this content from the application form be editable at a later stage on the website?
No. So once you submit, that is sort of it, you can't change the copy. Of course, between now and the pledge deadline, if you do want to make some amendments to your application, we can make them for you. So just email us. But once after that pledge deadline, you can't change the copy, so you can't change that wording.
Thank you. How do donations from donors outside the UK work? Can this be processed, and could they qualify for tax receipts in their countries, for example, IRS in the US?
Do you want me to take that one, Sahil? So if they're outside of the UK, they can absolutely donate via Visa, MasterCard, any sort of international card. If they are not UK registered taxpayers, then they won't be able to sort of claim gift aid, obviously. And all of the organisations that are taking part in the Christmas Challenge are all UK registered organisations. So tax efficient giving won't necessarily be available for US taxpayers because it's not US registered. You know, in the US they have a charity registration called 501c3, so it's not US registered organizations that are taking part in the campaign. But of course, anyone around the world with a Visa or MasterCard or Amex, we accept Amex as well. So anyone with a sort of valid debit or credit card can donate in the campaign.
Thanks, Alex. We kind of already answered this, but just to reiterate, are all applications likely to be accepted, or if not, what's the likely success rate?
Yeah, I think we've essentially answered this already, but yeah, 84% of eligible charities last year did receive champion funding. And again, even if you don't receive champion funding this year, you could still take part in the campaign using your pledges as the match funding for that campaign. So it's really up to you in that situation, but it's a really high percentage chance of you could essentially be accepted and get champion funding.
Thanks, Beth. We're a charity with an annual income of 150,000. What is your advice for a realistic goal? Our biggest need is we are losing MOD funding for a key veteran filled position. Has there been experience from other institutions of raising funds to help with this issue?
So we've definitely had charities in the past raising funds for vets. I think Blesma is the one that springs to mind. They've taken part in a number of years now. So they said your income was 150k. I think we'd say probably go on the conservative side for your campaign this year. So I think maybe max 10 to 20k would be a good target. And then also consider what your fundraising experience is. So I'm not sure obviously what your fundraising history is, but if this is your first time in digital fundraising, then definitely go on the more conservative side, so more towards 10k or below, because obviously you just want to develop those skills for your first time campaign. But feel free to pop us an email if you do want to arrange a chat with us and just to discuss that in more detail.
Thanks, Sahil. Are you seeing a downward trend in giving? We are looking at what we have achieved in the past few years with the Christmas Challenge. Last year was positive, but would be interested to know your view of the current landscape.
Do you want me to take that, Beth and Sahil? That's a great question. I think it's from Karen. Thanks, Karen. I wish I had a crystal ball to tell you what this year would look like. I mean, my headline response to this is we are constantly outstanded, despite being nervous in the sort of build up to Big Give campaigns about how generous the public are and how, despite very tough economic circumstances, how giving continues to maintain and grow. I think one probably insight from last year's Christmas challenge was that on average, our charities had a lower number of donations per charity, but a higher average donation. So our sort of hypothesis there is that our charity partners were relying on sort of a smaller number of wealthier donors to get them to their target. But I wish I could say what that, if that would also be the case this year, and what the economic situation will look like in 6 months' time. If anyone knows, you can probably make a lot of money on the markets, but that's definitely a bigger question that I can answer, I'm afraid, Karen.
Thanks, Alex. Our trading name is different from the name that we are registered under on the Charity Commission website. Our registration numbers are the same. What's the best way to address this within the application?
So when you register for a Big Give account, you need to register with either one of the registered names for the Charity Commission. So that's either the one on the Charity Commission page or where it's under working names. So you need to use one of those names to register for an account with us, and that's what we will show you on your campaign page. So it has to be one of those officially registered names, and we can't sort of change that to one that isn't registered with the Charity Commission. So if you do,
Sahil, just to say on that, I was going to say for Katie, it might just be worth popping us an email and we can sort of discuss that with you.
Yeah. Are there any opportunities to reach out to the champions or for you to share our details with champions to have discussions after the Christmas challenge?
Yeah, shall I take that one? So our champions, last year we had 28 different champions taking part in the Christmas challenge. And I would say there is a real range of sort of attitudes towards engagement with our charity partners. So some are at one end of the spectrum who really appreciate the sort of arm's length relationship, if you like, as frustrating that can be as a fundraiser. And I've been on the other side, so I know how frustrating that is, but they appreciate the sort of arm's length relationship that they have with the charities through the partnership with the Big Give, all the way to other champions who really want to be engaged and in contact and hear the stories back from you and possibly even sort of meet in the future. So when you receive your notification of champion funding, we will tell you who that champion is and then also what they want in terms of sort of engagement back with you. So we'll share that details about whether it's possible to sort of be in touch. We'll share their email address if they're happy for us to share it, obviously, with you. So that will come at the point of you finding out who your champion is. Thanks,
Alex. Pledge related question. If I submit your application and state we're aiming to secure 3.5K in pledges or before the pledge deadline closes on the 1st, can we amend our target before the campaign week?
Sorry, Karen, you just cut out there. Was that
sorry.
Was that if they want to get 3.5, but then they want to increase it?
Yeah, if they secure more before the pledge deadline, can they amend their target before the campaign week?
So and we'll go over pledges in the Securing Pledges webinar, so please do sign up for that. But just to answer this question quickly, is that you can only collect pledges up to your target. So if you do want to increase that after you've submitted your stage 1, get in touch with us and we can increase that for you, but it will be capped at whatever your target is, so you won't be able to exceed it.
Thanks. Is there a maximum amount someone can give during the actual campaign for match funding purposes? For example, can someone give 50,000 and completely use up a 50K match?
Yes, so the maximum individual donation amount is 25K, but then donors can give multiples of that, and yeah, if they want to.
Thank you. Do you have an example of a best practice environmental campaign page? And there's also another one about an example of an unrestricted funds campaign page. Just maybe off the top of your head, I'm not sure.
I think, yeah, if they can email us, and then we can probably share some best practices. So if you do want those sort of examples, please do email us.
And Beth mentioned the case studies as well, right, Sahil? So I guess there'll be some, I would hazard a guess, there'll probably be some good environmental charities on there and who can share some of their learning.
Did Bendrick have their social media buttons on the page and have a banner image and a circle image at the top of their page?
Sorry, Beth, you want to take this?
So all of the media that they added can be done in your application form. So there's a section called media where you can add your banner, where you can add your pictures. Again, if you don't have that now, that's absolutely fine. You can just put in like a placeholder banner and add in media at a later stage, and you'll be able to edit that. And the only other thing is the logo, which is shown in the circle image, that you find by going to account and images in your charity portal. So if you haven't already, you likely have already, but you can upload your logos there.
Thanks, Beth. This year I'm overseeing Big Give for our charity, but 2 different hospice sites. Will I need to complete 2 applications? If one sits decides to have a pledge for 5K and the other one wants to have a pledge for 15, how would I complete this application?
I think we may need to, understand if they're 2 completely different registered charities. I think, yeah, if that person can email us, I think that'll be helpful just to understand a bit more, and then we can answer your question.
Yeah, I think that was from Tommy. So Tommy, yeah, if you send us an email, we can only accept 1 application per charity. So as Sahil said, if it's 2 different registered charities, we can, accept an application from both, absolutely no problem. If it's 1, you might want to sort of frame it as an overall project for both of your 2 sites. But yeah, as Sahil said, get in touch and we'll support you with that.
Do pledgers have to sign up online, or can we sign pledgers up for them? And do they have to release funds via the Big Give website, or can they send the funds direct to the charity?
Yeah, great question. Oh, sorry, Beth, do you want to answer?
Yeah, no, I can answer. So in that second stage, you'll have access to a pledge form which you can send to your pledges to fill out. So it's a really simple form. It won't take them long, just a minute or 2 to fill out that pledge form. For pledges, these count as promises of funding in this initial stage. Pledges are paid directly to the charity after the campaign has ended. So all of your pledges that you have collected, we pay to you directly once the campaign has ended. But I can see there's been quite a few questions just about pledges and the process and what champions are, etc. So I would definitely advise everyone who is unsure about the process or unsure about the terms we're using to check out that previous webinar we done to introduce the Crystal Challenge, as it goes a lot more into detail about each stage, what's needed, all of the terms we're using. So that would be a really helpful resource for you guys to have a look at.
Thank you. We're a small preparatory boarding school and we want to raise money for transformational bursaries so we can do our bit to tackle social inequality and make our contribution to social mobility. Do you think we could secure champion funding?
I would say on that, I mean, our champions are really interested in such a diverse range of charitable sort of endeavors, and we have sort of supported similar projects by the sounds of that. I think it was Daphne who asked that question. So yes, we've supported that sort of work in the past. Obviously, we can't give any guarantees, unfortunately, because the sort of the decision is down to our champion partners. But yeah, we support such a broad range of organizations.
Thanks, Alex. What if you don't use all of your match funding? Can the pledges donate to you after the campaign's ended?
Yeah, so if you don't use up all of the match funding, first of all, match funds are matched by pledges, and then they're matched by any champion funds you've been awarded. So if you haven't used up all of the pledge funds, then it's prorated between your pledges about how much they're liable to pay you. They can still pay you the full amount if they wish to, but that's at their discretion. So that's just the key, is if you've used up all of your pledges or not. As Beth mentioned, check out the pre-introductory webinar if you already haven't done so. So it just gives you a good understanding of how that mechanism works.
What's the latest we can submit a video clip for inclusion to the website?
There isn't a deadline for this. You can edit media during the campaign if you wanted to. But obviously, if you want as many donors to see your media, I'd advise making sure it's uploaded before the campaign is started.
Thanks. Do you provide a template to collect pledges that we have to use and submit?
Yeah, there is a pledge form after your stage 1 is submitted that you will have access to straight away. That is you need to share that pledge form with your pledges, and that's what they need to submit by 1st of September.
In the charity portal as well, in the support section, there's also a pledge email letter template that you could use to go out to pledges as well. And obviously edit it to work for your charity, but you can use that as well.
Thanks both. Is champion funding likely to be at a lower level this year? And do pledgers have to give the same amount as champions? For example, if you only get 1,000 from champion funding, could you only get £1,000 from a pledger? Or could you get more to build up the match pot?
Shall I take this one, guys? So Karen, I'll answer your second part of your question first. And the deal is whatever you, so it's the other way around. So whatever you secure from your pledges, we will do our best to try and find you that same amount for one of our champions. So if you secure £5,000 in pledges, we'll try and find £5,000 from one of our champions, and that means you have a matching pot of £10,000 in total. In terms of your question about whether champion funding will be at a lower level this year, we have very generous champion partners, and we continually sort of build relationships with them. And so we are very much hoping that we will secure more champion funding than we have had in the past. And that's our sort of ongoing goal, is to try and secure more champion funding to distribute to amazing charities like yours. So watch this space. That's a continually sort of ongoing cycle. As Beth mentioned, our sort of champion funders, where they are up for us listing them, are listed on the website, but we will definitely be adding more to that list over the coming weeks and months ahead.
Thanks, Alex. What's the GDPR policy for this? For example, do the donors opt in to contact from the charity so we can then thank/steward them and bring them on board as supporters?
Yes, absolutely. We do ask that question to donors if they want to be added to your email lists or not. And you'll have a donor report available in your campaign dashboard, which you can download. It'll have all the donor information, their opt-in statement, and their emails if they want to be added to your emailing list. Our GDPR policy does not cover direct mail, so we will show the addresses of donors, the home addresses, but that's to only be used for gift aid purposes if you're claiming gift aid yourself. So you can't send any direct mail to any donors, even if they've opted in to receiving comms from you, only emails.
Someone mentioned about income, what their conservative target would be. Off the back of that, I work at the Great North Air Ambulance Service, and our annual income is in pounds. We have projects that generally cost approximately 30 to 100K. So would like a good idea of what our goal would be, please. And with that, we are always looking for income for running costs, which are approximately 7.7 billion. Would this be realistic?
Shall I have a go at that, Sahil, and then Beth and you guys can come in. So I think definitely. So Beth mentioned earlier the setting your target resource, which is available in the charity account area. So I would definitely, we've had quite a few questions in, I think, about sort of what's a realistic target. I think it's a really difficult question for us to answer because we don't, as Sahil mentioned when answering the earlier question, we don't know your funding mix as an organization, how many supporters you have on your database, you know, how well networked you are as an organization. So it's really difficult to say it should be this number or this number. I would definitely check out that resource and then try and do some mapping internally about what you, perhaps with other team members, what you think is realistic about setting a target. Firstly, for your pledges, how much can you secure your pledge for your pledges, and then what knock-on effect that will have in terms of your target for the overall campaign is how much then, you know, we've used the example of £5,000. So let's work on the assumption that you get £5,000 from your pledges, £5,000 from a champion, so you have £10,000. Do you feel confident that you could raise £10,000 from your existing or potential supporter base? And I know it's not an exact science, but I think it would be worth sort of, you know, basing that on what your experience has been in the past. Have you done any sort of digital fundraising before? And also just to sort of assure charities that are sort of wrestling with that question, two things. Firstly, we do a lot of training in the build up to the campaign to help you do things like network mapping and thinking about those people that you could make an ask to. So we will have training available for you completely free in the build up to the campaign to help you answer some of these sort of questions and actually put it into practice in the build up to the campaign. The second thing is that we will try our best to let as many people across the country know that this is happening. And so 95% of the charities that took part in our Christmas campaign last year said that they got donations from supporters that were completely new to them. On average, around about 25% of donations were from people that were completely new. So this is an amazing way to, you know, I know, as I mentioned earlier, I've sort of worked in charities before. I was at the Big Give in the fundraising role, so I know how challenging acquisition is. And this is a really amazing way to put yourself in the sort of shop window and potentially reach supporters that have never heard of you before.
Thanks, Alex. Do you have any statistics on donations per country in the UK, especially Scotland?
Not specifically Scotland off the top of my head. I think last year it was around about 92% of all the donations we received were from people in the UK, and then 8% from, I think it was like 140 different countries all around the world, including far-flung places that so it surprised me that people were donating from those countries. So sorry, no, not specifically on Scotland. Although, yeah, you know, we obviously have data about where people are located. So if that's of interest to people, maybe we could look at doing a sort of, obviously an anonymous report, but looking at sort of geographic spread of donors. If you're interested in that, send us an email and we can definitely look at doing that as part of our sort of reports that we do for the Big Give.
Our charity has what could be considered to be large reserves due to good governance over many years. However, as you look at reserves, could this go against us with champions? Alex, maybe that's another question.
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think that's probably about really explaining predominantly your charity accounts, but feel free, we do have a question about reserves in the application, is explaining firstly what your reserves policy is and sort of justification of that, which obviously sits best in your charity account. So you might need to sort of talk to others within your organization about that. But then explaining about why you as a charity have felt a need to build such substantial reserves. And obviously the Charity Commission has guidance about what is appropriate reserves, and you know, your charity accountant will be aware of things like designated funds, so that you don't just sit on this big pool of unrestricted funds, that they might be, you might be working towards a big capital project, and that's the reason for the reserves. Just clearly state that in your application and the sort of rationale and justification for it. And obviously we read that and our champions read that as well. So as long as they can be justified of why you're holding that, that we wouldn't necessarily hold that against your organization, for sure.
Thanks. During campaign week, Can we organize an event to raise funds as part of the Big Give campaign week, then make a donation of the funds raised via our dashboard for it to be added to our donation total?
Yeah, we get this question a lot. So that is, if you're collecting cash donations, you can sort of collect those cash donations, and then someone from the charity will need to make that donation from their personal account. So one of the key rules of the campaign is that charities can't donate to their own campaign. So it would need to be from someone's personal bank card that they make those sort of cash donations. But what we would advise in that situation is just consult your finance team about how to correctly show that in your accounts and how to really process that correctly, because they would best know that. But that is how you can process cash donations for events.
Thanks, Sahil. Is it only cash / one-off donations which are matched, or if someone sets up a direct debit during the campaign week, would this also be matched? Thanks.
Yeah, so it's all donations need to be made by the Big Give website during the campaign week. So we, as Alex mentioned, we take donations by credit, debit card at Amex. They're all one-off donations. We don't have a facility to match recurring donations, and we can't match donations made on other websites. So if someone has a recurring payment with you on your own website, we can't match that, unfortunately. So you can ask them if they want to make a donation during the campaign week by the Big Give website. And then for donations of £500 or more, we do have a BACS facility as well.
Is it okay to have a pledge target of 5K and just one pledger? Would that be less attractive to champions? What personal details do pledgers have to share, and are pledgers' information public, or can they be anonymous?
Shall I take that one because it's about pledge? So Justine, thank you for that. I'm going to reread your question. Absolutely fine for one pledger to pledge the whole amount. That's absolutely fine, and that's not going to be less attractive to champions. They do share some personal details on the pledge form, but that is not publicly available, and they can absolutely be anonymous. So no problem at all. So that information just sits on our system, and it's obviously shared with you as a charity as well, so because you need to know who your pledges are, so it doesn't go beyond that. Sahil, did you want to add something there? Looked like
Yeah, I was just saying, yeah, just we have had in the past where some pledgers have filled out the form and they type their name as anonymous. Please don't let the pledgers do that, just because after the campaign ends, the pledgers pay you directly, and then you need to upload a proof of transfer of funds. So one of the things we check is who the payee is versus the pledger name. So as Alex said, that information isn't shared publicly, so they can fill out their personal details and they'll be safe and secure on our website.
Thanks both. Will you be mentioning the extra awards we can go for if we exceed the overall target? I understood this qualifies the charity to go for other monetary awards, but only if the target's exceeded.
Beth, you want to take this one?
Sorry, I've been typing away, so I'm going to just reread that question again. Okay, about the Chris French Awards. So yes, we will be having awards again this year, and again, same terms will apply about having to raise over your target. But we will be letting you all know the details and the categories a lot closer to the time.
Thanks, Beth. Is there a way for charities to tweak the suggested contribution to the Big Give fee from 15%, or is it set that way for everyone?
Shall I take that one, guys? Yeah, I sort of appreciate that the tip. So when donors make a donation on our website, we ask if they would like to add a tip onto that, which is income for us as the Big Give. So just to sort of state that, you know, the Big Give is we're a charity in our own right. We don't exist to make money for shareholders. Our mission is all about multiplying generosity, and to be completely frank, if it wasn't for asking for tips, we would not be able to do what we do. Like the Big Give would not exist. So we cannot survive as an organization ourselves unless we ask for that tip, and that's what helps pay for the running costs of our website and the team, etc. So it's an integral part of us as an organization. And, you know, what we try and do is make that as fair as possible. Donors can absolutely opt out of that if they want to. And we try and look at what other donation platforms are doing, many of whom aren't registered charities, to try and find what would be an appropriate amount in terms of like what's the industry standard. So we're trying to balance a lot of delicate things here. But just to say, you know, this is absolutely all to help us do what we do and help you amazing organizations, which we're really proud to do. So yeah, that's a bit of context around the tip there.
And I'd just like to add, like any sort of money that exceeds our reserves and running costs, it goes back into match funding. So in the last few years, we've been able to start offering match funding from ourselves as an organization. So it's all circular and hopefully going back to supporting you as well.
Thanks. Saho, do you want to take this? Can you explain how the BACS transfer will work? And in the meantime, I'll link the BACS transfer website here.
Yeah, I'll give a very brief overview of it. So the way that it works is that a donor will need to create a donor account with us, and they will then need to make a BACS transfer to a unique Stripe bank account that is unique for their donor account. Once we receive those funds, we will then credit or add what we've called donation funds to their account. So if they make a BACS transfer of £1,000, they will have £1,000 worth of donation funds. During the Christmas Challenge week, they visit your campaign page, they click the donate button, and then they need to log into their donor account, which there will be a big prompt at the top of the donation page. Once they've logged in, they will see a notice which says, you have £1,000 worth of donation funds you can donate. They complete the donation form as normal. They're just not asked for their credit card details, and their donation is made from those donation funds. So I can understand if that may be a bit complicated, but like hopefully from the page that Karen has sent, it provides more details of how that works.
And the last question we have is there any other place I can find the answer to my simple question above, when we can revise the target without rewatching the whole other webinar? Like a written outline of the process?
Yeah, so there's a couple, I don't know if there's a detailed written resource that we have. We would have to check through. It's worth checking the charity portal just to see what support we have there already available. But essentially there's a couple areas where your target changes. So the first is when you set that initial target in your application form. So this is where you outline how much you're hoping to raise online donations during the week and how much you're hoping to secure in match funding, which is a combination of your pledges and the champion funds. The second stage, your target may change, is dependent on how much pledges you secure. So if you don't raise the amount of pledges that you set out in that initial application form, your pledge target and the amount of champion funds you're eligible for will change.
Oh, Beth, I think you're...
Sorry, I noticed that. And again, the second place, your targets could change again, will be dependent on how much champion funds you may secure during that offer deadline. After that point, your target will only change if you choose to top up your pledges. So if you decide you want to increase your target after you've secured all of your champion funds and so on, you can do that, and we'll send out information about pledge top-ups at that stage. But that's the only other time you would increase your target, again, before the campaign starts.
Yeah, and just to clarify, if you do top up your pledges at that stage, you can't get more champion funding, so that's just something to consider. But we will explain all of this as the process goes along in the emails. I think that is it. I think we've sort of hit the time and hopefully answered any questions. But if we have missed any questions or you have any further questions, please do contact us, hello@biggive.org, and we'll be really happy to answer any questions you may have or arrange a chat if you want to discuss something in more detail. As mentioned, there is a pledges webinar in a couple of weeks, so please do sign up on that. We'll go into more detail about the pledges and that process and all the sort of rules surrounding that. and also have the case studies from the charities as well, which I'm sure will be really useful and helpful for you. I just want to thank everyone for joining us today. Hopefully you found this webinar useful for your own applications and all of the questions. And we're looking forward to receiving all of your applications and reviewing them. So thank you all for joining us today, and I hope you all have a lovely day. Thank you. Bye.